Thank you to you and Erica. All right, Hal.
All right, 6:21 p.m. on February 18th, 2021. Call to order. Hal's here. Katie, are you here?
I am. Thank you.
John?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Present.
Mike Rusher?
Present.
Mary Lee? Mary Lee, you there? Jessica Wilkerson, she's no longer on the board. Ted Williams.
I am here.
Okay. I think we have a quorum. Based on that, we're missing missing one, and the board is short of a member or two. So anyway, first order of business is approval of minutes from the last meeting. I'm kind of going fast here. I'm just trying to catch back up so that the developers who are waiting online aren't sitting too long. So bear with me, but I'm just going to try to run through the stuff as quick as possible. So approval of minutes from last meeting. There was a slight change to the minutes that was sent out a little bit prior to the meeting regarding the adoption of the dark sky recommendation to town council. Did anybody have any objections to the minutes from last meeting?
No.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve
Nope.
the minutes.
Second.
I'll second.
All right. Hal says aye. Katie?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And Ted?
Aye.
All right. Passes unanimously. Megan, I'll get you the signed minute. Announcements. I don't really have anything. Do any of the board members have any announcements they would like to make?
No.
Going once, going twice. Okay. Committee updates. Tree Cap and Bee City updates.
Yes,
Who's that? Is that Shelly or Megan?
that is me. I will run through this really fast. We'll be doing these from now on, just giving you quick little tidbits from
Okay.
each committee. So Tree Cap, you will actually hear from Shelly next. I believe she will be giving a presentation about some things that they're working on. They're also planning for Arbor Day coming up for this year. And then for Bee City Committee, they just had a meeting last night, I believe, and they're working on their a future pollinator demonstration garden at Apex Nature Park. So that is underway. They're currently in the site planning phase and removal of non-natives on site, and their grand opening should be in June. Thanks for your time.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for your update on that. Shelly, does anybody have any comments on that or want to add anything before we move on?
Megan, will this information be published on the town website, I assume, somewhere? Of when the
Both
Bee City goes, when they start doing that?
when they begin the garden, yes.
Right, right.
Yes, I believe so. And I'll certainly keep you updated.
All right, with no other comments, Shelly, would you like to give us the updates on the trees and shrubs list?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So technically, this isn't part of the Tree City USA thing. This is kind of separate. As I'm sure you guys know, we have on our website something called the Design and Development Manual. We've had it since at least the 80s and 90s. It basically includes a variety of things, including plant lists, planting standards, and then some specific details for other items, for kind of other development related items. And then we also have some architectural standards and illustrations for the small town character area. This is what the existing Design and Development Manual looks like. And this is page 1 of our large trees list. This matrix is large. It has a lot of great information, but it's kind of unwieldy. It hasn't been updated in at least 10 years, as you can see down here. I've actually looked at the plant lists that have been the core of this, and going back probably 15 or 20 years, it hasn't been completely updated. We've had a number of concerns from developers and then also from residents trying to use it, that there are species in here that are recommended that we actually don't recommend using except in very specific situations anymore. And we've been meaning to update this for a while. It's just kind of a large task. So we also, as I'm sure you remember, had the trees and stormwater study a couple of years ago. And a couple of the recommendations that they gave us were, they gave us a number of them, but some of them included updating the planting list and separating our tree lists into large, medium, and small. Currently, they're just separated into large and small. Doing large, medium, and small allows us to kind of fine grain things a little bit more and make sure that we're providing adequate soil volume and soil area for the trees that we're planting. There are a number of other recommendations, and we're kind of breaking this into chunks to make it manageable to do with staff's time, since we don't have the budget for a consultant for this. And honestly, it's the kind of thing that staff doesn't really want to necessarily have a consultant do. So this is the new cover sheet. Kind of smooth it down. We actually did a branding study within the last year or two, and this uses that branding study's input. What I'm going to show you is our updated list. There are still some things I need to tweak as far as formatting, like I don't have the page numbers correct in here yet. But I'm planning on taking the finalized version of this to town council in March. And we're going to have all of those little small formatting details fixed to then. I just wanted to show it to everybody before then. Some of the things that we have done were what was recommended in the trees and stormwater, but some of it is a little, staff kind of took the reins and went a little further. For one thing, we've updated and simplified the overall list instead of having it be that very complicated matrix that you saw a moment ago. We've tried instead to smooth it out to make it a little simpler. We have separated into small, medium, and large trees as were recommended. They also recommended that we emphasize the native species in our tree list. So what we've done is listed them first on each list and then put the non-natives after, and I'll show you that in just a second. And that's because studies have shown that if you have a long list of options, most people are going to open that list up and take the first 10 or first 5. And so if you put the native species at the top, you're more likely to get more native species for the people who aren't going to dig in very deeply. We've also added some separate lists to pull things out by use or situation. So one thing we have a lot of trouble with is parking lot trees or people not understanding what types of screening shrubs are appropriate, that kind of thing. So we've pulled out separate lists like this, and we have all of these. And then we've also added a reference to prohibiting planting of invasive species. We didn't have anything in the UDO or in our design materials that specifically prohibited this until today, or until this. We're adding it here in the design and development manual, and then we're discussing adding it as a UDO amendment as well. And what we've done is we've actually referred to the North Carolina Invasive Plant Council for their list, so that when they update it, it automatically updates in our stuff. And I'll be keeping an eye on this and making that tweak as necessary. Just to give you an idea of what that looks like, if you come to this website, you can get the invasive plants for all of North Carolina, or you can get just the Piedmont. And I've gone through and taken all of the invasive ones off of our list. We don't have anything for herbaceous perennials, aquatic plants, or vines at this moment, so we focused primarily on the trees and shrubs right now. If we get requests to add additional lists or decide that there's a need for it, then we'll make sure that these items are also addressed as well. So without further ado, excuse me. This is also, these colors and everything are all using our branding survey. This is just to give you an idea. As I said, native species are first. And we've got our introduced adaptive species, and we decided to label them that way because they are not on the list of invasive species. Now, any introduced species has the option or the possibility of at some point becoming invasive, but we don't have that information yet. So that's what we've decided to call them on here. We've got our medium trees, which that's a height of 30 to 50 feet. Small trees. We did go ahead and label pollinator and bird-friendly trees as well. Primarily did that with the native species, just because generally that's what we want to recommend and encourage when we're thinking about plants to put out for our pollinators or for our birds. And these are not just plants that have flowers and have nectar. They're also the plants that our pollinators can lay their eggs on and feed their larvae off of, like your caterpillars and things like that. So the next step for this is going to actually be to update the town's website after town council anyway. Our next planned step is to update the town's website so that each individual list is able to be downloaded, so that if someone only needs to use one, they don't have to scroll through the whole list if they don't want to. They can actually just download the one that they need. So if they're looking for trees to plant under electric lines and large shrubs, they can just pull that, open it up, and pull a few of those items off. That's my presentation. If you all have any questions or suggestions, I am happy to hear them. Like I said, I have a few little formatting things I have to fix.
It looks like Suzanne has her hand raised on the.
Okay.
Hey, Shelley, this was a great effort. This is really good. I did see a couple things in it, and I was wondering if you could just give me some information about how to best provide those comments to you and sort of the time frame for doing so, or if you want me to go over them now, or.
Since we're kind of behind already, unless it's something that you think the board might have a question about or might also benefit from hearing.
There were just a couple species, I think, that were misclassified.
Okay.
I only had just a little bit of time to look through it. So would it be best to then just maybe email those to you?
Yeah, you can just send those right to me. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And what is your time frame on that?
I would prefer to have those by the end of next week if possible.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together. It looks very good.
You're welcome. We're hoping this will be easier for everybody to use because while this is part of the development manual, we also recognize that residents end up using these too. I know I have, when I've been planting my garden, I've gone and looked at the different types of lists that are available online, both from our local governments and everything else. I will say that these are native in that they are native to east of the Mississippi and are cold hardy or heat tolerant of zone 7, which is the USDA zone that Apex is in. So I did not go all the way down to making sure every single plant is native to Wake County or to North Carolina per se. That is a much larger charge. So.
Anybody else, any other board members have any questions or comments that they'd like to make on this? Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is starting to meet with the different development groups. Looks like we're starting with the Cary Vet Hospital. Suzanne, I want to give you the gold star for providing comments to Megan and questions to Megan in advance. I think that was really helpful, and I do appreciate that you took that and ran with it. So thank you for that. So Megan, whenever you would like to let the first group in. I think we're ready unless somebody has a comment they want to make before that.
I'll admit them now.
Okay.
This is Mr. Roach and Mr. Schultz.
Good evening. Sorry, we're a little bit late, guys. Just wanted to touch base with you about your project and hopefully be able to learn a little bit about what you're doing and maybe make some recommendations on environmental items related to it. So could you give us a summary of your project and what you're planning on doing?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff Roach with Peak Engineering. I appreciate you guys. I was watching the council's committee meeting like everybody else was, enthralled by the discussion. So not to take too much of everybody's time, but the project is pulled up there, the McMains property there at the corner of Summer Meadows Drive and Jinks Road, as well as the Hobbs property. We've been approached by someone that's looking at putting and I'll say a vet hospital. We're going for a B1 conditional zoning request for a non-residential use of that property. We are going to extend the street out to Jenks Road, have a driveway off to the east side with a non-residential building in that location, the associated parking. We're still working with the owner on the sketch plans. It's really early in the process, so we're more focused on the zoning right now than we really are about a lot of the site plan issues that will come up as we get farther into the process. So with that, I will kind of turn it over to you guys. This is my first time at the EAB, so I'm kind of here learning as well. So I'm interested in hearing what you guys have to say and what kind of questions, what kind of things we can do.
Jeff, there's two pieces of property shown there. Is the idea that you're going to combine those two pieces of property to build on?
Yes, that is correct. We'll have both the Hobbs and the McMains property. Both of them are under contract, and there just isn't enough property with just the Hobbs piece because of that public street coming out of Westford tying into Jinks Road. So the owner does have both pieces of property under contract. Correct. That road that the hand is over now will extend out and will align with the, I think that's a preserve at White Oak Creek directly across.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it'll be something along those lines with the building sitting somewhere on the right-hand side over that area there where staff is pointing to.
Okay. All right. And how do you plan on either developing or not developing adjacent to the pond? I mean, what do you plan on doing with that area?
As of right now, the owner is actually proposing just to leave it in place as it is.
Okay.
The building, it's about 11. Our current sketch has about an 11 or 12,000. It may go a little bit bigger. They may do a mezzanines or some upstairs space. So right now, it's still kind of in flux at this point. But to get the B1 conditional zoning in place to allow for, those neighborhood type office, medical, vet hospital type uses is what we're shooting for.
Okay. Any board members have any questions?
Mr. Roach, this is Suzanne Mason. Is the plan just for a single building on the site or multiple buildings?
At this point, it's currently for a single building. Because it's a very specific use. We know what the use is, but we don't want to restrict it to that long term in the event that they sell the business and it becomes a medical use. But right now it is a single use with the pond staying in place there in the northeast corner.
How large is the pond? Like how many acres?
I actually don't know offhand. I want to say the total assemblage is just over 6 acres. So that could be, 3/4 of an acre, maybe an acre
Okay.
Size pond.
According to the GIS data, the McMains property is about 3 1/3 acre or so. And this takes up
A third, maybe, Shelley.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
3/4 of an acre to an acre sounds right to me.
Yeah.
And according to what we have on file, this is not a buffered stream. That could change. Just letting the board
That's
know.
correct. That's correct.
And this is a natural pond and not some kind of stormwater measure that was there previously?
That's our understanding, correct.
Okay. All right. Since Mary Lee's not here to to ask that. I knew trying to ask her a question for her.
And we're still really early. We're still doing the due diligence on the environmental side. We'll have the environmental engineer out there. We still have to, as we get farther into the zoning, we will release full survey, boundary, topo, the whole 9 yards to identify what's out there. We've got road, frontage improvements to do. So there's still a lot of work left to do on the overall project to make sure the building fits, the buffers are appropriate.
Are there any greenways or park property or anything that's adjacent or nearby this property?
The nearest park is actually going to be as Jenks Road comes down and then turns north to Wimberley. There's a park that's here. Let me pull up.
It's down by just south of the American Tobacco Trail on Wimberley Road, the new fire station and the town's new park.
Okay.
So
sorry, Shelley, I'm able to answer that one.
Yep. Hey, I'm fine with that. So this is roughly the location of a new project that's been rezoned, and the town owns a variety of parcels here. So this is going to be a new park. It's obviously not been built yet. And then this is part of the new development. This will be a new fire station here. So there'll be, I think just regular sidewalk, but possibly a multi-use path coming up this way. And then there are internal sidewalk connections through here as well. And there's sidewalk along both sides. There's sidewalk along the southern side that's been built by Westford. Mm-hmm. And then if and when these parcels develop, they will also be required to provide, actually, I think they have to provide side paths, so 10-foot side path here. And sidewalk, I think, is what's required here. Correct. These are I know it's sometimes harder to see when the aerial comes up. This is the McMains parcel, and this is the Hobbs parcel.
What's currently on that? Is there a
both
house
of them are houses?
House.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. All right.
And Shelley, the sidewalk will be required there
Yes.
on this property.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, and Katie, that's what we talked about with we'll have to adhere to the UDO, to the transportation plan, to the Parks and Rec plan.
Mm-hmm.
And those are things that we're starting to get into with all the due diligence for the owner to understand what his exposure is, what he has to do.
Mm-hmm. And just to give you an idea, this is what side path on the north side will look like, the opposite side of the street. And this is what the sidewalk on this side will look like.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I like visuals. They help me, and I figure they help other people too.
Any board members have any comments or suggestions or anything like that?
Mike Rusher here. I really appreciate the comments on the sidewalks because this is a potential developed couple plots together that's really sitting smack dab in the middle of residential area. So you'd be going from house to house to a potential business at this site. So I think, blending in as much as possible, the continuous look, I think is important. Sidewalks help with that. Buffers help with that. I know we're limited on information that's available at this point, but I think every little bit helps in this, just it's almost 100%. It is 100% residential right here. So.
And Mike, real quick, and Shelley, I think can answer this as well, or kind of back me up. This land is actually set up for either it's actually a mixed use parcel, which would allow some residential, but it would also require non-residential to go into the parcel. We are proposing 100% non-residential on the piece, which actually matches the 2045 land use plan and is a permitted use on the 2045 land use plan. Yeah. So it's actually shown. It's shown as the orange, which is the high density residential, the red, which is retail or commercial services, and the blue, which is office employment. So we've gone the route of this is a good location for a the neighborhood business, which could be the vet hospital, a small office building, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and the neighborhood business is a great moniker, I think, here, especially connectivity. and look and feel, being right on the cusp of a few large neighborhoods.
And we're also, and we're going to work with staff also on the layout and stuff like that. We have a neighborhood meeting coming up next week with the neighbors, and we are going to commit not to connect our project into Summer Meadows Drive with any vehicular connection there. So that will hopefully provide an area that we can buffer them and leave them alone. So our project will be pretty isolated from the large lots next door. And of course, Westford is still developing. So anything coming in next to Westford is, brand new resident, don't even live there yet.
Get my.
I guess my only, environmental suggestion on any of this was, to, try to maximize whatever kind of buffer you can put around the pond, in terms of keeping, I don't know anything about what that hospital is going to look like, but we certainly want to keep any kind of pet waste and that kind of stuff out of the fresh water and that kind of thing. So I'm not sure if they're going to have a large outdoor dog area, for boarding or not, or what, whatever. But that's kind of really the only thing that I'm leaning towards it right now.
And we'll talk more, and we'll deal more with Shelley and staff as we go through the rezoning process. But just remember that pond, when we say it's a natural pond, just about every pond in North Carolina is a man-made pond. It wasn't built for stormwater controls for the area or anything. It was just built, 50 years ago as a farm pond or whenever it was built. So, yeah. But our goal is to do exactly what you said, which is to kind of keep that pond in place, make it a not an eyesore. But we'll continue to work with the buyer as well and make sure.
Jeff, this is John Garrison. With the idea that this might be an ER vet hospital, I assume you're going to be getting potentially a lot of night customers, and the lighting at night is going to be critical. I would, being right next to these subdivisions and stuff, there's going to be a big potential for that light to glare onto those adjacent properties. I'd like to see maybe something from y'all focusing the light onto the ground and minimizing the blue light and reducing the color temperature of the outdoor lights. That's something y'all can do?
So what we typically do, what we typically recommend is that the non-residential users like this actually rent the poles from the town of Apex. So we actually work with Rodney Smith in the electrical department. And I think the town, Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the town is doing almost all LED light installation these days. That's and correct. As such, we do a lighting plan that is required to have the photometrics, all the point photometrics around the site. So that is something that we will definitely look into. Shelley and I will talk more as we go through the site plan process. And we'll bring electric in a little bit earlier than we may normally do it to get Rodney's input as well. But that's a great point, Mr. Garrison.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Garrison, the UDO actually does require that any lights near a residential property line have external house side shields on them.
Right.
It doesn't prevent everything, but it keeps people from having as much glare onto their property.
Okay.
And we also have fairly restrictive standards as far as how much light can actually reach the property line. It's still enough to see, but it's not hugely intrusive generally. And I got confirmation from the electric department recently that they do have those warmer 3,500 Kelvin lights available that we had talked about last week.
3,500 or 3,000?
They have the 3,500 that they can guarantee for me now. They might be able to get the 3,000, but they know that they have availability for the 3,500.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So what are you going to do about your stormwater? Are you going to put another pond on the property, do you think? Or is it going to be some sort of underground containment?
Most likely it'll be either a stormwater wetland, kind of in the south, maybe the southern portion. That's where the natural draw wants to go. And if you guys are aware of the topo on the site, the high point is where the Hobbs property is, the house where the Hobbs property is. So for us to get sewer, nope, the other one, Shelley.
Oh, sorry,
The other
Jeff.
house, that's okay. That's generally the high point of the site. And what we're doing is we're actually going to place the building in that general location, because if we put it anywhere else on the site, we're not sure that we can get gravity sewer down to Westford. In doing so, we will probably end up with our pond on the south side of the property. And we typically, we've been going with a lot of stormwater wetlands, which are heavily planted. A lot of a duckweed type material, duckweed in the bottom, versus having a wet pond that's 3.5 or 4 feet deep. The site's a little too small to sustain that. So we will have a stormwater control. We'll follow the ordinance, and we'll go through with Jessica and staff to review and get that approved as well. Does that answer your question, Suzanne?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, board, or does anybody have a suggestion or anything we want to officially make toward the rezoning?
Somebody has a hand up there. JG, whoever JG has a hand up.
That'd be John Garrison, I would guess.
I don't have a hand up.
Yeah, I don't see any hands up from my screen, but
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just me.
I'm just happy to be here.
I do have one more comment. I don't know if we're talking about the same duckweed, but duckweed does tend to be a little bit invasive. So I
picked it. There's another pond here in town that has duckweed in it. That's the first one that came to mind. We follow the town's ordinance on what the plant materials are for the constructed wetland, and the state also has a list of wetland type planting materials that we follow pretty close.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you there.
I guess one recommendation I would have is in terms of something to go to the town council would be that we have some sort of agreement that you're going to put in pet waste stations. One for whatever BMP you're going to have if it's accessible by the public. Somewhere, so the animals aren't using, defecating there in the stormwater BMP area, and somewhere near that freshwater pond. So at least 2 on that. If you could provide some kind of buffer from the surface water, I think that would be great. I'm not sure, without seeing a site plan or whatever, I don't even know.
Understand
on that, but anything we can do to protect surface waters, I think is a good thing.
Hey, just real quick, Shelley, does that count as a site amenity, adding pet waste stations?
Maybe. Yes.
I'm just kidding. We'll deal with Shelley. I'm kidding. We'll work with that. We'll work on that site plan. But
Jeff enjoys teasing me.
Sorry, guys. Okay.
I would like to express support for John's idea too, that the lighting be thoughtful, considering this is a 24-hour business.
Mm-hmm.
And I've duly noted we've got that written down to work with staff.
Katie and John, I mean, we were asked to make more specific recommendations. Can we tie it back towards something on dark sky or something like that?
Well, I mean, we could focus it back to the new conditions that were adopted last month. Condition was 6DI and 6DII.
What's the 6DII? Never mind. I got
That's
you.
the emission of blue light. reducing the emission of blue light to reduce glare.
Okay.
The first one is focusing lighting to the ground.
Yeah. It sounds like there might be a requirement for that anyway, according to Shelley, but at least for this.
Well, I think her discussion was more the glare on the surrounding subdivisions and surrounding properties.
Okay.
I understood her right.
All right.
That's correct. But we can also work with them to I think the focusing light down falls under full cutoff fixtures. Is that correct, John? Making sure that there's not light coming out the sides of the fixtures, that it's all going directly down to the ground.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that is something that the UDO requires as well. We only permit full cutoff fixtures. That's for both the building lights, the ones that are on the building, and for any pole mounted lights as well. The only exception to that is those acorn style lights. They do have a mirror inside, a shield inside at the top, but they do send out light on kind of in a broader outward pattern. So if what you would like is to make sure that there's no outward throw, no side throw, then request to avoid any of the acorn style lights would probably be aimed at, would probably get that covered. Does that sound all right? Or does that sound...
that works for me.
Hey, Shelley, can I weigh in real quick? I don't know what's next door. I don't know what Westford has next door as their lighting, but remember that will be a public street going out to Jenks Road through our property. So if they have existing acorn lights, then they're going to want to, the town is going to want to continue whatever that pattern is. So whatever happens on that public street, I think is kind of out of my control. Internal to the site, if they're all LED lighting, those are focused down anyway. They don't throw the spread like the sodium halide lights do, and they have a much better color. So I think from an internal side, yes, we don't have a problem doing that. It's just I don't have control over the public right-of-way section that connects out to Jenks Road.
My understanding is I'm the planner for Westford too. So my understanding is the Westford lights are all shoebox style, so they don't have the acorn look.
Perfect.
But that's a great point.
Yeah, but we don't have a problem, Mr. Garrison. We don't have a problem doing that. I think that's a reasonable request.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So, do any other board members have anything, or can we? I think we on the table we have so far lighting. Something to do with pet waste stations, maybe one at the BMP and one at the pond, or near the parking lot. So that
Hal, I have a list and more verbatim of what you all suggested. Would you like me to read that list? Would that be helpful?
That'd be great.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
Sure. So the first thing is to maximize the buffer around the pond to prevent pet waste runoff. The second is to install a pet waste station near the BMP and the freshwater pond, so a minimum of 2 pet waste stations. And then if I have this right, we're taking from our recommendations list 6DI and 61 and 62, which is outdoor lighting shall be shielded in a way that focuses lighting to the ground, and lighting that minimizes the emission of blue light to reduce glare shall be used, as well as avoiding acorn style lighting. Does that all sound right?
Yeah.
The acorn style was to address the first one of the lighting options, I thought. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think if you're not going to use the according to Shelley, the acorn style lighting is what is pretty much the only thing that will allow the spread of the light instead of focusing it on the ground. So if there's no acorn lighting, it may be superfluous. Those two things.
Well, getting it down that they won't use internal site lights with the acorn style, I think is still useful. And then avoiding the blue light colors, is 3,500 acceptable for that?
I think it would be, but I don't. Is the rest of the board okay with that? 3,500?
I mean, if you'd like to push for the
That's-
3,000, that's fine. I just wanted to double check.
Shelley, be careful because we don't control from our site. We don't control the lighting if they're renting from the town. So
I know.
you're putting a requirement on Rodney Smith and the electrical department that he may not be able to deliver. So
And I
just-
understand that. That's why I
Okay.
wanted to check to see if the 3,500 was acceptable from the town's point of view. or from
And
the-
Jeff, all we're doing is throwing out recommendations. And town council is the one that negotiates this in the end. So,
Absolutely. Okay.
you know, if we throw something out that, you know, the town says they can't do, or that, you know, you can't physically do, it's not like, you know, there's enforcement power or anything on this. It's, you know, it's something that can still be negotiated with the town or town council, I think.
And my job is just to get enough clarification that when staff tries to help the applicant craft a condition, that it's specific enough that it addresses your concerns without being so restrictive that it can't be addressed. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah, and Shelley's heard me say this multiple times. I don't want to craft a condition that I can't meet that would require me to come back through zoning again simply because of something from a lighting LED standard that we just can't meet. That's all my concern is. So yeah,
Sure.
we'll work with staff.
So, board, I, you know, I'll at least make the movement that we go ahead and move forward with the suggestions that Megan just read through. Are there any seconds on that, or do we need more discussion?
Second, Mike Rusher.
I second.
Okay. Katie,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Ted.
Aye.
All right, it sounds like we have consent on that. And Jeff, we appreciate your time on that, and
Thank
good luck on the rest of your project.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, since this meeting is going to be extraordinarily long, we do have a chance to take a 5-minute break at some point during it. So we don't have to do that now, but I just want to leave that on the table that we can do it either now or after the next developer, depending on what y'all want to do. Anyone?
I'm okay with going now and holding off.
Okay. All right. Megan, you want to bring in Williams property?
Yes, I believe we have 3 guests that will join us, and I also believe that they want to share a PowerPoint.
okay.
I'll admit them now.
All right. Megan, you want to bring in Williams?
Yes, I believe we have 3 guests that will join us, and I also believe that they want to share a PowerPoint. Okay. I'll admit them now.
Somebody has the YouTube stream pulled up.
I was wondering what just happened.
That was a little bizarre.
Hey everybody, how you doing? You guys hear me okay?
Is that you, Bob?
That's me. Can you see me?
Not right now, but thanks for joining us. We're excited to learn a little bit about your project, and if you could fill us in a little bit. We're basically, our role is to try to advise town council about environmental conditions regarding the rezoning, and so we'd like to learn as much as we can about your project, and see if we can work with you on coming to agreement on some things.
That sounds great. I've got a little PowerPoint to share, so I'll go ahead and pull that up on the screen. Make sure you guys can see it. You see that okay?
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. Let me just make sure I can see you guys quick. All right, great. Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Bob Zumwalt, and I am a landscape architect with Alliance Group, and I'm in charge of design and entitlements there. And I am joined tonight by Jacob Anderson, who is president of Alliance Group, as well as Jesse Hardesty, planner from McAdams. And I will just take a few minutes of your time and go over the site. The project, as you can see, is located just on the south side of Green Level West Road at the intersection of Bachelor Road. So this is the Castlewood neighborhood here. Wimberley Drive connects right in here, and we are located right there. So let me go to the next slide. The site is 62 acres, give or take. The advanced apex land use designation for the site is low density residential. So according to the town's comprehensive plan, that calls for single family duplexes and townhomes with a maximum density of up to 3 units per acre. That's what the ordinance suggests. Our proposed zoning would be a plan unit development, and we are currently going to be submitting with a maximum density of 2.85 units per acre. Next, I wanted to show you this map, and I just flipped the map to the right because I can blow it up a little better. So north is to the right. Green Level West Road runs along the north here now. So Lake Castleberry sits at the bottom down here. So we've had SNEC go out, soil and environmental consultants go out and do a wetlands and stream determination. And so you can see their preliminary results here. So everything you see with this kind of green shade is a buffered stream. The hatched pattern here is a wetland. These will all need to be surveyed, but these are GPS points from our wetland consultant. So we've got a stream buffer here, an existing farm pond with a buffer around it, and then additional buffer and a jurisdictional channel located here, and then a stream that runs from Castlewood through into Lake Castleberry. So you can see our property stops just short of Lake Castleberry. This land over here is owned by the Castleberry Homeowners Association. And so what you see shaded as environmental features, we are not going to be disturbing any of those features other than having to make one required roadway connection across this creek to pick up the road that's stubbing out of Castleberry. So I'm going to go on to the next slide. So this is an image from 1999. And so what I wanted to show you is how this site has been used, has been farmed for quite a while. So it was cleared back in '99 and it was farmed up until a few years ago. And so what you see out there now, for the most part in these areas, is just regrowth pine. This is where our road connection would come out. And there's an existing gas line that runs through the site right here. This was the old farmstead up along the frontage. So now I'm going to go to the next slide and just kind of show you roughly how this overlays. So the green areas you see here are the areas that we intend there. So it's existing preserved canopy. So there was one question I think that Megan sent us. Yes, the areas in green, we do not intend to disturb at all. They would be preserved vegetation with the exception of that road connection, which we're required to make. There are some champion trees up along the frontage that will also be preserving. I wanted to give you a little historical context because it's really interesting. The original homestead you can see here, this is back, I'm guessing that's from the 40s. I wish I knew exactly when, but this is the original family and all their relatives standing in front of the house. Here's the house before it burned. You can see they added a garage onto the side. Unfortunately, it burned down last year in 2019. But these champion trees along the frontage and these stacked stone walls, they're really, really cool. I don't know if you've driven this road, but it's so iconic to drive past those and see them. And so we are going to create a project that capitalizes on these trees, saves them, puts a park space under them, and then we want to tie in. We're thinking these rocks, these stones probably I'm thinking they came from the fields when they were farming, and they probably stacked them up. So we may find quite a few more, and I'd like to incorporate this stacked stone motif into the landscape concepts. Moving forward, this is our bubble plan, and I've added a little more detail to it. Can you guys see that okay? Okay. So the areas in yellow are areas that they just outline the area we anticipate development occurring. So they're outside of all these environmental areas. And I'm going to list some of the design features that we're anticipating. We're still working on the layout of the neighborhood. I've got some trash paper sketches, but they're still kind of sketchy. And so this will indicate some of our thinking. So we're going to preserve the champion trees right along the frontage, and we're going to work to have an entrance be right here. So you come in right on these champion trees so they can be a focal point. Maybe we can put some uplights in them and just kind of highlight them. We're going to preserve the stacked stone walls, like I mentioned. And then we want to have a series of integrated and connected pocket parks and open spaces. So the current design has got, if we connected a park here to a park here with trails, kind of linking them all together, and there'd be varying sizes. Some of the connections through here would be sidewalk connections, but maybe we can have some soft surface walking trails that go through the gas easements, through the outer edges of the buffers, creating sort of a loop for people to be able to walk and connect to all the open space features. We also are interested in providing educational signage about the wetlands. We do have a number of wetlands on the site, as you saw. We will be putting in the pet waste stations where appropriate, away from the environmental features. We are also in the process right now of having our tree survey being done. The reason we don't have it done right now is basically SNEC said they sink up to their ankles right now when they're out there. So we anticipate having it done in the next about week to 2 weeks. So it will be included with the our submittal to the town. Moving on, we are proposing to increase the buffer along the eastern property line. So we're working with the neighbors here. We had a good neighborhood meeting. We're going to meet some of these owners out here in the next couple weeks, walk the property line with them, and see what kind of trees are out here. But our intent is we haven't settled on a width yet, but our intent is to increase this buffer and to try to, protect the neighbors as much as possible. The retention of the storm pond, there's an existing farm pond here, so we will not be removing the farm pond. Then we are going to go ahead and commit to increased biodiversity in the perimeter buffers and the open space areas. We'd like to use some of the plant pollinator friendly flora and native plant species in the open space areas and buffers. And then one of the ideas we had was you can't do a whole lot with these gas easements, but we did another project in Durham where we had a 200-foot power line easement. And if you can smooth the grade out and make it feel gentle, you can seed it with things like wildflower mixes that are butterfly friendly. Sometimes the neighbors will put bird boxes out there as long as the gas company doesn't know it. But it can make it very pretty. And then we can weave some trails through there. And then we're also planning on providing solar conduit in all the homes. And I can go back to this slide when I'm done. So here's just a list of the environmental conditions that we'd like to propose for our first submittal in March. So like I mentioned, preservation of the champion trees, preservation of the stacked stone walls. We will commit to tree canopy preservation and replacement rates. So once we get a little further into this, we will commit to something in the zoning that preserves and replaces trees. We'll commit to a minimum amount of open space and pocket parks, a minimum length of total trails. We'll commit to the educational signage. We'll commit to pet waste stations and signage around the sensitive areas, but outside of them. Increased stormwater controls above the ordinance. We're working on our design right now, but we believe we're going to go ahead and propose to commit to detain the 25-year storm event. And then, as I mentioned, increased buffers to the east, retaining the farm pond. We'll explore if it's possible to reuse the water for some irrigation. So that may be something we can do. It's a little up in the air right now since the dam of the pond is not on our property. Somebody could drain the pond someday. And then use of pollinator friendly flora and native plants, and then the solar conduit. And then, as Shelley mentioned in the previous case, the town of Apex does require full cutoff street lighting. So we won't have lights in any of our open space pocket parks. It would just be street lights. So that is a summary. We look forward to hearing any observations or feedback you have. And if you want me to switch to a different slide, just let me know, and I can. Maybe the best thing is just leave this one on the screen.
This is how. I'm getting a little feedback, but anyway, this is an excellent presentation you put together. I really appreciate your work went into that.
Thank you.
The walking trails that you talk about, are they going to connect to any public greenways or anything like that, or is it just internal to the property itself?
I don't believe there's any greenways out here, so it would just be
okay.
Internal to the sidewalks, and then walking trails through the natural area.
Okay. All right, and maybe town staff. My only other question: that pond. You know, there is some maintenance usually on you know, the berms of ponds and that kind of stuff in terms of trees growing up on them and weakening them and that kind of thing. Is with a pond that kind of crosses a property boundary like that, is that an issue or something we need to worry about? And I'm posing that to Shelley probably more than anybody.
Well, I can chime in a little bit. Whoever owns the pond dam owns the dam, or owns the pond, kind of like what Bob was saying. So it'd be their responsibility.
Okay.
And actually, Jessica's the expert on this one, so I'll bow to her.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Can you clarify for us if the solar conduit will be in all the homes or if it will be an option in the home?
It'll be in all the homes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So the area you're showing in yellow, like what percentage of the property is that? Is the area not in yellow your 30% RCA or whatever the requirement is?
I'm not sure exactly what the yellow amounts to, but the area outside of it is greater than 30%. I know that.
Okay. And this is a question more for, I guess, staff. So, so why, if I'm interpreting things correctly, with a planned unit development, does the maximum percentage of developed area, does that change in a planned unit development versus low density, the maximum built upon area?
It does.
Okay,
well, so it's actually complicated. In a planned unit development generally reflects the maximum density, or I'm sorry, maximum built upon area for the land use map designation underlying it. Okay. So this is low density residential. So it would generally comply with that, with the low density residential built upon area. However, the PUD does give the applicant the option to change that.
Okay,
and so they can increase it if they want to. Generally speaking, though, PUDs like this, especially if they're preserving 30% RCA or more, or 30% undisturbed area or more, rarely get above 45 to 50%
of built upon area.
Built upon area. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
That's the reason why the town doesn't track it on an individual lot basis, is because you would essentially have to have every lot covered in concrete to ever get to 60%.
Okay, so that calculation is based on the entire acreage of the property being developed?
It is.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
but
we would be nowhere near 60%.
Okay, and it's certainly not up to 70, which it looks like a PUD can go up to.
I would guess we probably wouldn't be more than 30% impervious.
Yeah.
Okay.
I rarely see people get close. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Bob, when you say increase biodiversity in perimeter buffers, can you describe what you're talking about?
Well, I think we're just talking about using, pollinator plants and native plants, and not just picking from your standard what's available at the nursery, but trying to mix it up so that you don't have, you buying 1,000 of one plant and then all of a sudden they get a disease and you lose 50% of your perimeter buffers.
Mhm.
So what you're proposing then is to use a variety of different species
Right.
throughout instead of using large amounts of single species.
That's right.
Thank you.
So where are your stormwater ponds going to go? What is that going to look like?
So the whole site slopes basically from green level. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention, because I forgot. See this red arrow right here? This is kind of a sharp curve. So one of the things we're going to be doing is flattening this curve for the town of Apex so it's safer. So I just didn't want to forget to mention that. The whole site falls, all the way to Lake Castleberry. So there is actually a pretty large hole right here, sort of at the head of this creek. And it's a nice natural draw to be able to collect the stormwater. So I think we'll have multiple locations. We'll probably have 2 or 3 storm ponds. We'll probably collect some stormwater here. Maybe we'll collect a little more up in here. We were talking to the neighbors. We were thinking we might try to collect some in here so we don't have any houses next to them. But we're going to work really hard to not have any ponds over here because I think it would make them happy to not have them here. So when we get into the final design, we're going to try to see if we can get the vast majority of the stormwater to come down somewhere in this lower pod.
So those ponds on the east side of it, I guess that's east. I don't know which way is north on this map, but yeah, those, you're going to close those out?
Well, they're not existing ponds. They're just, we were just indicating that it might be a good spot to collect some stormwater and not have houses sitting over there since, we've got a stream buffer right here. So you'd really wind up with like 2 stray houses outside of the neighborhood. So we're working with the neighbors to see what trees are along here. And if there's significant trees in this area, we're not going to put the ponds over here. We're going to try to move them and leave this area undisturbed. Our goal would be to leave this area undisturbed to give the most privacy as we can to the Castleberry neighbors.
Gotcha. Okay. Any more comments from the board?
I will say I like your idea of illuminating the trees, but from a dark sky standpoint, that might not be the best thing, especially because you are kind of getting out into the country where it is pretty dark.
Yeah, we did this at a project in Holly Springs where we had some 70-inch oak trees, and they're just very low voltage lights. They only come on from like dusk until like 10 o'clock, and then it just lights the underside of the canopy. It's nothing that would get out of the canopy, but I hear you.
Anybody else? Well, with no other comments, I mean, your list seems pretty comprehensive. I really like several of your ideas, so I would almost, suggest we accept what you have on the proposed environmental condition screen there.
Okay. Kelly, I can send you this PowerPoint so you have it, so you can take them off.
There's some of those are like the increased biodiversity, if you use 2 plants instead of 1, then I guess that's an increase, but I don't think that's your intent, but there's no, specifics on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, I'm not worried about that, by the way. I was just saying, that some specific kind of information may be needed kind of as we move forward, but
Sure. Yeah, we'll come up with better language than that for the actual submittal, but it will go toward making sure we're hitting that commitment.
Yeah. Hey guys, Mike Rusher here. Bob, I had a quick question. Up on the northern part of the parcel across green level, did you cover what's going on with that plot that's not in yellow? It's across the street.
It's not part of we're not buying that piece, so the Williams family's retaining that. So it's
Okay.
it's just a part of it. Yeah.
Gotcha. I was referencing that because I'm looking at page 3 of the pre-application and it's in the green box. So I wanted to ask about that.
Oh, I gotcha.
My second comment was on the southern part of the property when you're coming up against the neighborhood. It's looks like Grand Highclere Way. Looks like there's an HOA pool and a strip of houses down there. I'm just looking at the satellite image right now. It looks like the woods are pretty sparse. There's a stream cutting through there, behind the neighborhood. I'm a little concerned about that buffer and development coming in, into those backyard viewscapes. But I mean, have y'all thought about? I haven't thought too much about this, so warning. Have y'all thought much about increased plantings in that area? Because one thing the board discusses, I think almost every meeting, is the importance of buffers in between neighborhoods and different uses.
So I think the reason it looks a little more sparse here is it's probably full of hardwoods, and this is a winter photo. But this is the distance from this pool to this yellow buffer to this buffer is 200 feet. So there's 200 feet of distance between that pool. These are 50 foot. So that's a 50 foot, another 50, another 50, another 50. So we'll be somewhere north of 200 feet away from that with anything going on. And that's all protected stream buffers. So we really can't get in there and plant in them. 200 feet is a lot of distance through canopy trees and stuff.
Yeah. And
it's a little deceiving. It's
so I just looked at I'm looking at Google Earth right now, and who knows? It could have been the green areas are much more green and filled in than your map is, and that gray area seems to be a little more sparse than what your map is. So
when we get the tree survey, it'll identify all the trees in there. So we'll take a look when we get them.
Mike, if you want, I can share the town's aerials, and those are from last month.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to Bob's answer on the buffer. I mean, just with that buffer discussion, you're saying it's kind of wait and see. Was that what you were saying?
Me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of trees in there. It's just hard to see because it's a winter photo. But we'll take a look at it when we get it. We can't go in a protected stream buffer and plant in there and disturb it. So yeah, there you go. You can see it there.
Yeah. Looks like the trees are very thick.
Yeah, see the stuff that looks gray? Those are hardwoods. So those are going to be maples and oaks and willows, and the green are pines. So if you were to look at this, in the dead of summer, it'd probably all look pretty green.
And actually, one of the tricks I've found to looking at these to figure out how thick they are is look for the dark lines, the shadows on the ground. And you can kind of get a feel for how many big trees there are and how thickly they're planted and everything.
Are those pines up there? Is that like a forestry land kind of? I mean, are those planted? They almost look like they're in line.
That's sort of, remember the image I showed of when it was farmed? That's all the pine regrowth in those areas when they stopped farming coming back in.
Okay.
Yeah, I bet you our surveyors will probably be aggravated trying to do a tilt. See, you can see really well in that one. It shows all of the pine regrowth in those open areas. You can see they look like lines of trees up in the middle.
This is the newest stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
And then this is the older stuff where the canopies had a chance to get going a little bit. Still not super old, but you can see where the fields were.
Yeah, right.
And that's part of the reason why I was asking about that area where that canopy started to regrow. Shelly, where your mouse is right there, that heavy green. It looks like that's protected almost wholly, it looks like, from the concept plan that I've got here that Bob provided.
I think a lot of that, there's 100 feet of preserve buffer on the north side of that creek. So some of that canopy, that dark green, will be probably in that 100 feet.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is if our stream is down at my first little point right here and kind of winds through here,
Yeah.
you're going to have some hardwoods, but you will capture some of those pines.
Well, board, anybody else have any other questions, or should we move forward, or what should we do?
I move we accept the recommendations that they presented on changes.
I'll second that. So we're gonna, Megan, I assume that you have taken a picture or screenshot of something of the recommendation or the things that they've offered to do.
Yes.
I'll send it to you, Megan. I'll send you the whole PowerPoint.
Great. Thank you.
Great.
You bet.
So let's vote on that. Aye for me. Katie?
Aye. Thank
John?
you for the presentation.
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And Ted?
Aye.
Okay. I think we have consent there. So thank you for your time, Bob, and whoever else is on the line. I'm not sure that we gave anybody else too much time to talk, but thank you for your time and the presentation. That was really well done.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
It
Have
was.
a good
Thanks,
night.
Bob.
All right. Take care.
Board members, do you want to take 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or what's the thought?
Let's take 3 minutes. 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay. So let's all try to be back at. I have 7:32 right now, so let's just try to be back at 7:37, and we'll have the next developer then. Okay. So we're gonna adjourn for just a minute. Give everybody a break.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Honey, you want some dinner? Yeah.
Hey, make sure to mute your mic if you're away from your computer, everybody.
I helped her out, Mike.
Kay, do you think I need to do a roll call again?
Not if we can see everyone on the screen.
We'll give people just a minute more and then we'll. Megan, are you ready to bring in the next group?
We are ready.
Okay. John, are you there? Are you back?
Mike's here.
Okay, Mike, good. Suzanne, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. John and Ted, are you two here?
I'm back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. So I think we have everybody. So whenever the next group, Friendship Storage is what I'm seeing on the schedule.
That's right.
And who are we meeting with?
It's Mr. Daniel and Mr. Nichols. I will admit them now.
Great, thank you. Gentlemen, good evening.
Hello.
Hello there.
Thank you for joining us. Sorry we're running late. We had some technical glitches in terms of being able to put this out on the internet earlier. So we are hoping to get some information about your project in terms of being able to provide input to town council on environmental aspects or improvements we can recommend regarding your development. So if you could give us a little bit of background on your development and what you're trying to do, that'd be great.
Okay, well, I was gonna say it's comprised of 2 parcels. It's about 9 acres, and it's out in West Apex off of old US 1. It's zoned rural residential, and we're looking to rezone it to Tech Flex for uses that would encompass retail and storage. I mean, that's the gist of it right there. And answer any questions that you had.
So you're going to have one stormwater pond on the west side of the
that sketch is very schematic. The topo kind of breaks in the middle to where it may end up with two BMPs. Just it's not known yet. We're still waiting on our environmental assessment, and that'll shape some of it.
Okay. So you'll have it'll be on septic, it looks like, and I'm trying to figure out which way water's moving across the surface here. Where's the high point on the property?
Where the big building is, basically. Okay. Yes, sir. I would say the ridge is up at the corner of Friendship and the railroad, and then it goes towards old US 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Board members, what kind of questions do you have?
Can you tell us a bit about the buffers that you have planned? I consider this area to be pretty rural.
Sure. I mean, we're showing, I think we're 40-foot type A buffers, which is what the code calls for. With I think it's a class 4 next to a class 1. It's but we had confirmed those with town staff during the pre-app to where they are what they're supposed to be.
What's the lighting going to be like at this site? Is it going to be open 24 hours a day, or is it going to be limited hours in terms of people being able to access it?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry, I don't know what the hours will be.
Yeah. Do you know what the lighting layout's going to be?
No, like I said earlier, what we got here is a schematic layout based off of some pretty early on assumptions.
Sure.
We're getting some environmental work done. When we get a survey in with the boundary, we'll reset all the property lines and the right of ways and those buffers to where we'll get a kind of a new shape to work from.
Yeah.
The layout of the lighting will be, kind of towards the end of it, after we know the rest of it, it'll get worked in there. I guess you might be alluding to some kind of, you know, consideration for the neighbors as far as like house shields and off-site glare, and we're certainly we would like to be good neighbors to where we're open to something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I know we you know, where our board kind of meets with you, it's kind of so early in the process that we understand that a lot of this stuff hasn't been decided. And you know, everything's kind of preliminary in nature right now. So we're just, you know, trying to get an idea of you know, as well as you know about what you're planning on doing. So there's a existing house there. It looks like up in the northeast side of the property, or is that just farm?
That's a residence. That's where Derek lives. Derek Neverosky, I think.
Okay. I assume that house is on a well. Is that?
It is. Yes, sir.
Okay. And will the whole facility be on well water, or is there?
As far as water, I think the town's going to require us to run water down US 1 up there from the corner of Holland and US 1 along the frontage to where we'll have water at the site.
Okay. All right. So you would just close the well?
Yes, sir. We would decommission it. However, Wake County would want us to get rid of it.
Okay.
I think we had another guy out there from SNEC, and he said there was one other well on site that we would certainly take care of in the same manner.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
So is it definitely going to be a two-story storage building? Is that correct?
Well, storage is the use that we're after. So
okay.
I would definitely say that we sure hope it's going to be storage, because that's what we're shooting for.
And so that's like a self-storage place, like that kind of.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, and so I'd like to talk a little bit more. Have you considered the lighting? I know that there is one of those where I live near Salem in the Peakway near downtown, and it is lit up quite a bit where you can sort of see the doors of the inside of it and that kind of thing. So there does seem to be a lot of light that does escape these kind of buildings. So I would like to see something that sort of mitigates that.
Okay, well,
without it looking like a I don't know, some sort of prison building. I guess it's a compromise between architecture and lighting escape.
That's kind of an easy one for me to pass off to the architect to work towards. But I mean, that kind of speaks to one of your lighting efficiency subjects on your suggestions here. Of that, I'm hearing that you guys are wanting to see something in that regard. And like I said earlier, we like to be good neighbors, and we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable in their own setting, to where we're willing to explore options to address these sort of things.
Anyone else?
Like there's really two, I think, big opportunities here. One would be for a building like this that's going to be presumably long and flat. It seems like an opportunity to have solar panels on the roof. And then just for me personally, knowing this area pretty well, I would love it if you'd consider increasing the buffers, because I do consider this area rural. And this feels like a real change to the character of that area.
Okay. I know that the site does have environmental, riparian buffers, and we've got right-of-way dedication to deal with, and we do have buffers around the majority of it. The site is kind of constricted to where we can make an effort to give additional buffers if that's what we need to do, but 40 foot type A buffers should be pretty good buffer. You know, that's what the code calls for. And I guess I could also point out on the west side of the property over by Friendship, you know, that a lot of that, the shape of that land is just not conducive to getting anything in there, to where a lot of that's going to remain vegetated and undisturbed anyhow. Where, if that's any merit to you.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, appreciate that answer. Mike Crusher here. Especially on that west side where the buffers are, do y'all, and part of my ignorance here, would y'all typically come in and wipe everything out and then replant in the buffer areas, or would you try to leave what's existing there?
Are you talking about the landscape, the perimeter landscape buffers?
Yes, sir.
We would try to leave as much there as possible and then supplement.
Just to clarify from staff, if the intent is to use these perimeter landscape buffers as resource conservation area, they're actually required to preserve that area. They're not allowed to grade into it unless, you know, for example, this section doesn't have very much vegetation. If there were no trees there, they could clear that area and replant. But otherwise, the UDO requires that they preserve those existing trees in order to have it count as resource conservation area.
Okay, good point.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, the satellite now, I mean, looks like it's pretty green and wooded right now. So that's why I was digging into that part of it.
Mm-hmm. I was just using it as an example. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spot on. Perfect.
And we would be using those areas as RCA to count. So.
This seems like, and this is probably a question for staff, this seems like a lot of parking for a storage building. Is this much parking required, and could they have less to perhaps increase their buffers?
That amount of parking is not required for storage. It's most likely an estimate of what might be required for this retail building. The amounts for retail are higher. The amount for storage is very low.
I can speak to that just a little bit. Is that, yes, that is in excess. And again, I'll point to it being a very schematic plan. We were just trying to demonstrate some square footage of each use and parking to support it. We were when we were doing that parking, I was shooting for 4 per 1,000. The UDO calls for 3.33 for the retail, but a lot of times offices or retail want more than that. So that's why we were adding it. And that was one of the town's staff comment was, hey, town only requires this much and you can only go 15% above that, and you have more than that, you can only do this much. So yes, what we show is in excess of what we would need, or we would do.
Are they going to have boat storage too out there? Like a lot of these storage buildings?
Not currently. I think the code cites that if we have an outdoor area, we would have to fence it and delineate it. I guess that's not out of the realm of an option at the moment. But as tight as the site is, this one does not show an outdoor storage area, which would be needed to house a boat.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay.
So just to be clear, the amount of parking spaces you've got shown on this schematic are more than what you will actually end up doing, period, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The town staff told us that, and actually the client kind of alluded to, hey, why do we have so much parking spaces there? So.
One of the notes you indicated that things you would consider investigating was allowing for undisturbed spaces. Where on this schematic are you thinking that might be possible?
West side over by Friendship.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Just between, just the shape of that land.
Right.
Required buffers, and then the buffer stream that runs through it just kind of makes some of that unusable anyway. So kind of a good use for the land that we can't use otherwise if it serves a purpose. for you guys.
You also indicate that you're considering rooftop solar of some percentage, or are you looking at providing 100% capability, or just some piece of it?
I would say some piece of it. That was one of staff's comments, that they suggested that we would be open to doing something like that, and we are. To what extent is not quite known yet. And I hesitate to commit to anything without understanding it fully. We put on there, percent of the buildings. Just don't know how big the storage building is going to be with a different layout. If it gets any bigger or smaller. I mean, that's a lot of roof to cover.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Solar. So the cost is going to have to be factored in somehow.
Well, are you looking at self-sustaining for the building itself? Or are you looking for providing a little more power generation back to the power company?
I would probably say the latter. I wouldn't see it being self-sustaining, so I would probably say to provide back to Apex.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other comments or questions, or want to make any suggestions or anything like that?
Can I address the one comment that got sent our way this morning about the crossing of the riparian buffer on the west?
Sure.
I just wanted to make it known that what we've got shown there are assumed buffers based off of soil sheets and quad sheets. We're waiting on our SNEC guy to go out there to delineate those streams. But from what he's told us so far, the stream that we show on the west doesn't run the full length to where there's going to be an opening to where we can probably move that road to not impact the buffer. So I think we have a potential to not impact that buffer on the west.
Okay.
I think overall the plan makes sense. It's straightforward. I appreciate the commitment to not disturb the buffers, especially on the west side. Given that it's a rural, more residential, spaced out area, I'd be in favor of a recommendation to not disturb the buffers along old US Highway 1 as well. For that 30-foot area, just to keep the native plantings there and undisturbed, so it just blends better as you go from one point to another.
Some of that area is cleared already up by that guy, by Derek's yard. He's got like a horse run out there, so some of that 30 feet out there, over there is cleared.
So over on the eastern side, on the retail side of the, but more center.
On the west, that is treated. That's vegetated.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm riding along with you on Google Maps right now. I can see where that's cleared out on the eastern side.
Yeah.
Those were my additions, Megan, for recommendations, and if the board wants to adopt that, that's great. But that's my only piece.
I could go with that, and I like John's idea, about the shielded lights. We're not illuminating the area, residences, and everything like that. I don't know if that was your idea, John, or maybe that was Suzanne's. I don't know. In terms of the lighting, but
right.
I think that's a good recommendation. Anything else from anybody? The
commitment on the rooftop solar, some percentage. I don't know that I have a number or I don't know that he'd be willing to commit to a number, but I think if he's willing to install rooftop solar, then as far as I'm concerned, that's what I would be recommending.
Yeah, I think that would be a big step. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I toss out a question for you guys?
Sure.
This is my first time doing a EAB board here, and you know they asked for a list of things that we would consider. So I threw out a few things. Is there like a minimum that we need to meet? You know, like I'm hearing lights, I'm hearing solar, and I'm hearing vegetated buffers. You know, can we settle on 2 of those, or can we settle on 1 of those, or is all 3 what you guys are shooting for? Just trying to understand it.
Sure, Brian. There's not like a set requirement one way or the other. The only thing we do is kind of evaluate the property and the development plans with recommendations. We'll make recommendations, but at the end of the day, as you put together the site plan and as you work through town staff and then go before town council, then that's where the rubber meets the road, I guess. And, you know, whether town council agrees with our recommendations or not, you know, is kind of up to them, but they're asking us to make recommendations, and so that's what we're trying to do. But there's not like a set number. I'd say, you know, if you were going to do something very big and expensive, then it would be probably less items. And then if it's something like in a residential area, just putting up a pet waste station that's pretty simple and, you know, not very much, then, you know, it may be that somebody asks for more. You know, it's not a set thing. You know, it also depends on, you know, what's around the site. You know, do you have a lot of surface water on the site? That kind of stuff. You know, if there's environmentally sensitive areas or whatever involved, then somebody may be asked to do more than somebody who does not have surface water on site, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe sounds like some staff direction might help me through that. Like as we do the site plan I guess the zoning comes before the site plan, so we've got to commit to some things.
Yeah, Brian, we'll work with you to try to address as many of the board's concerns as we reasonably can. We'll try to help you get conditions that address the intent of those concerns without making it insanely difficult for your client to develop or anything. Okay. You're definitely welcome to propose conditions that you think will address those concerns. And just like with any other rezoning, we'll go back and forth with you a little bit to kind of help tweak the language or say, well, what about we look at trying to do this versus that? You know, maybe different benchmarks that can still achieve the same end result or still achieve the same idea, but, you know, are easier to evaluate or easier for somebody to hit. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. Look forward to working with you to get that right.
Yeah, Brian, at least I can't speak for the whole board, but at least from my viewpoint, you know, I definitely don't want to make development any more difficult than it already is, and add extra requirements, you know, that don't really provide a benefit. You know, if we can get environmental benefit out of, you know, some of these things and make development in Apex better than it would have been otherwise, then I think, you know, hopefully that's what our job is that, you know, we'll make an improvement, but still not make, you know, that we're not a hindrance towards development.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
So the official list of recommendations from the board that I have noted here, and please correct me if there are any amendments, but I have maintain undisturbed buffers. There might be something as well about increasing vegetative buffers. So please expand on that if so. And then I also have shielded light options to reduce light pollution and installing rooftop solar.
Those are the ones I heard.
Yeah. That's what I had too. Is anybody have anything else they want to talk about before we?
Yeah, it sounded like Megan had a question on whether there was a recommendation to increase vegetative buffers. I don't think there was one to increase. I think it was just keep them undisturbed.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
I would be fine with those. I'll make a motion that we accept those as presented.
I second.
All right. Katie,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Ted.
Aye.
All right, so we have unanimous on that. Thank you, Brian, for your time on that, and good luck on your project going forward.
All right, sure, appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, see ya.
All right, is everybody doing okay before we bring in the last developer? Anybody need a break or anything? What I'm getting at?
Now, let's get her done.
Let's
All
get
right.
it done.
I agree.
Just as a quick FYI before we move to the next one, the comment letter that went out with the Chapel Ridge townhomes was actually for a different portion of Chapel Ridge. It was not actually associated with this particular project. So please kind of just, some of that you can disregard, some of it you can pay attention to. I've also been notified that the layout has changed to some degree because of some environmental features that were shown. And it's possible the applicant might be willing to share that with us.
Thank you for updating that, Shelley.
Welcome.
Megan, I think we're ready with it.
Okay, great. I will admit them now. We have 4 on this team.
Okay. Are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, this is Hal with the EAB. Welcome to the meeting. Sorry we're so delayed tonight. Had some technical difficulties at the beginning, but we appreciate your patience and hanging on with us. Who are we speaking with?
This is Brandy Vega. I'm with Withers Ravenel, and I do have a PowerPoint. If I can go ahead and share my screen.
Well, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, I'm here with our team. Let's see, am I sharing my screen? No, not yet. Okay. Okay, so I'm here, and Jason Barron with Morningstar Law, Ed Tang, who is an engineer with Withers Ravenel, and Dan Rossi with Toll Brothers.
Okay, great.
So to introduce you to where this site is located, this is on the north, the Beaver Creek Shopping Center with Beaver Creek Commons that goes over 540. Olive Chapel Road. There's the townhome development behind Beaver Creek Shopping Center, and then Chapel Ridge Road connects through Ackerman out to Creekside Landing Drive. So in this area is 540 Flex, and there's an office building in this area. And so the parcels we're requesting to rezone are highlighted in yellow here. There are 5 parcels. There is a floodplain on the east side, and there is a 50-foot wide gas easement running through the parcel. So just to zoom in a little closer, you can see that one of the parcels is currently in the City of Apex corporate limits. The rest of them are in the ETJ. And we were asked if we could provide a slide with where our RCA is potentially going to go. I'll let you know that we are probably not as far as some of the other applicants as far as where we'd like to show you exactly where some of that RCA is going to go. We haven't done the environmental work. We haven't had a tree survey, and we haven't surveyed the site for topography. So we're a little bit behind what some of the other applicants you had. So what we do know is that this pond right here was already drained some time ago. So this image came from IMAS, which I believe was 2017. We do know that there's a stand of trees in this area. And we will preserve the area closest to the floodplain. As well as we believe this is a buffered pond, so that will have a 50-foot buffer on it. And play lawns can count as RCA, so we will have the play lawn somewhere in here. And this is the gas pipeline easement. As far as the layout, what you saw was a quick sketch that somebody threw together. And we're basically submitting that through our pre-submittal process so we can get feedback on layout, roads, something else that the technical review committee might be able to shed a light on. It's not anything that we're married to. It's probably far from our heart. So that in mind. And we did go through the list with Toll Brothers, and Dan has committed to that we sent in advance of the meeting. Install signage near environmentally sensitive areas to reduce the pest and eliminate fertilizer. As far as planting and landscaping, increasing biodiversity, we include the planting pollinator-friendly flora. That shouldn't be difficult. And planting native flora, referring to the Apex Design and Development Manual. For green infrastructure, again, we don't think it would be a challenge to provide diverse and abundant pollinator and bird food sources. I'm guessing those are also being incorporated into the Design and Development Manual. If not, we have a great landscape architecture team that can pull those plans together. And including landscaping that requires less irrigation. We do plan on using warm season grasses, we can commit to planting at least 3 different, if not 4 or more different types of tree species. As far as clean energy, we are committed to including solar conduit in the building design for each unit, not as an option. And a home builder is also offering to provide EV charging outlets as an upgrade option, and that would be individual units. For reduction, neighborhood, and for light efficiency, we can lower the maximum foot candles outside of the buildings. As you've heard from other applicants tonight, the lighting is Town of Apex lighting, so there's not a lot we can do about that lighting. But as far as exterior to the building, we can lower the maximum foot candles, and we can commit to working with staff on what that is. So with that, if you have any questions of us, I'm happy to take some of your questions.
Yeah, thank you. What kind of density are you planning on building there?
So right now, we're proposing townhome, and that would be, I think we're looking at 4.5, I think it was. But, you know, we can't figure out what the density will be on not having a layout.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't hear you. You were cutting in and out a little bit. Could you say that again, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, right now the density we believe is around 5 to 6, but with the layout changing, it could go lower if we have to punch a road through this, go somewhere else, and or you know, staff has made the comment that they'd like to see it go higher. So right now, I can say it's between 5 and 6, but the ultimate, I don't know.
Yeah.
So when I look at where this is sited, I see one amenity that looks really attractive. If I were to move to this area, it looks like the Beaver Creek Greenway is pretty close by. Do you all intend to put some kind of pathway or any, you know, conveyance to get people over as close to that as possible?
Oh, we haven't looked at that yet, to be honest, and I don't know where that is on the Greenway plan. I don't know if it comes all the way through to Olive Chapel. I guess we will work through that with staff, and if the connection is on our side, it's probably on the adjacent property.
Right, but I was just wondering if you're going to have like sidewalks along your frontage along the road to maybe, yeah, if it does connect nearby to get people as close as they can.
Yeah, sidewalk is required along Olive Chapel, so that would be a requirement for the project.
If you'd like, I can show the section of our bike and ped plan that shows that this area.
Yeah, that'd be great, Shelley.
Okay. These are the parcels that Brendy is referring to. This is the part of the Greenway that Suzanne just brought up. This is required, I think, sidewalk along Chapel Ridge Road. And then so the sidewalk would come down through here, and then Olive Chapel also has required sidewalk as well. So that would be the main connection to that, unless there's additional roadway connections that end up being built.
So Shelley, the red dashed line means it's proposed but not existing, right?
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I should have been clearer. The dark green lines are existing. The red lines are proposed, will be built, but aren't in existence just yet.
So potential connection could be by sidewalk at the southern end of this neighborhood to the future pathway of the Greenway. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
I like
think
that.
up to Beaver Creek Commons Drive, right by Coles, and get on the Greenway there.
There it goes. It goes by the stream buffer that comes out just in, like, here's Target and here's Coles. I may have that backwards. Maybe here's Target and here's Coles.
Yeah, I think Brandy and what Suzanne was getting at was just neighborhood connectivity to the Greenway, which is something the board has been charged with, among other things, finding solutions there.
Well, the Greenway, there will be sidewalk along all of Chapel Road. In the future, I imagine that red dashed connection will get made, and in the meantime, though, they can walk through Chapel Ridge Road, through the townhomes and up through Beaver Creek to get to the Greenway.
Yeah, I think we could say something as general as, you know, that during the technical review part of it, that, you know, pedestrian friendly connections to the neighborhood are encouraged, or something to that extent.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? What other comments people have?
The pond that has been drained, is that considered a wetlands area at this point, or?
No, sir.
Okay.
That pond was drained about 3 years ago, and I'm pulling up the newest aerials now so you can see it. It's
yeah, I knew it was
dry.
gone. I just I didn't know whether it was well, I guess this week it really doesn't matter. Everything's a wetlands. But typically, I mean, is that area considered?
We
don't
haven't done an environmental survey yet, or any delineation, so that would come during
Okay.
phase, and if there is a wetland there, it
My understanding, though, is that that was a horse pond, that
Yeah,
it was dug
I
and
think
kept
so.
filled for the horses. So it may or may not be, but
The play lawn up there, it almost looks like that's a tree area right now. Am I looking at that right? Up there in the north east part on that aerial, it looks like those are trees. So the idea is to cut down the trees and put grass.
Well, the ordinance requires a play lawn with a flat slope, and it has to be a minimum size per unit. So that's probably the flattest area we could find here. So unfortunately, that may mean removing trees to create that open play lawn.
Sure. Okay. I just want to make sure I was looking at the map right. I wasn't trying to lead you down something. So, okay.
Yeah, and because of the easement and the pond, that area really kind of isolated there anyway.
Okay. Will all the stormwater from the disturbed areas end up in your BMPs, or will some of the stormwater end up in that pond to the north?
I'm going to let Ed speak to that. He's an engineer. You know, I do know that we are required already to do the 5-year pond here. We didn't offer as a condition because it's already required. So, but I'll let Ed talk about where all the stormwater may be going.
Yeah, preliminarily, the stormwater, we can't send the stormwater to this pond to the north without providing some kind of stormwater treatment on site. So we will be sending the stormwater to ponds, you know, on this exhibit that's on the screen. That's a conceptual plan showing where the ponds are. Generally, the site, you know, goes as high on the west side and then flows to the east next to Beaver Creek and that floodplain. So if there's any stormwater, generally it would be treated in those designated areas that were shown conceptually now as BMPs, and then the water will get released into the stream at the pre-development rates that the town's stormwater ordinance requires us to. So long answer for the answer is really no, we can't send it straight to that pond. We got to treat it before it goes into that pond if we need to send it in that direction.
Okay.
Good answer, Ed.
Thanks, Jessica. If I didn't screw it up, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's perfect.
Board members, anything else?
Yeah, are there any, this might have been covered, I apologize, I was looking through all the documents as quickly as possible. On the southern end of the property, are there plans or requirements already for sidewalks to be placed down there?
It's required, yes.
Okay. My comment was just going to be, you know, take steps for future connectivity to the Greenway. I think, you know, the Chapel Ridge Road walkability down to Olive Chapel, running east towards the future Greenway expansion would meet that requirement in my mind. It's more of a comment, I guess. So.
Y'all have listed some things you're willing to consider adopting. What things, after hearing us, what things are you thinking you would be able to do? The clean energy is the solar conduit and EV charging stations. Is that something y'all would be willing to consider?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Ah.
I hope you didn't take that as me about it. It's definitely on mute. So yeah, the solar conduit in the building, definitely know that's important to the town council as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this home builder, Toll, you know, is willing to provide the EV charging outlets as an upgrade option. So yes, those are things we considered. We considered all the items on your list that was sent, and those were items that we thought this project could commit to, or at least consider.
So y'all are willing to commit to all these?
I believe so. I don't want to speak for Dan, but I believe that's the intent.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll chime in. This is Jason Barron with Morningstar. Yeah, we discussed the list, and I will say that having this list as early as we've gotten into the process is incredibly helpful to inform applicants like us in terms of what priorities are the Environmental Advisory Board. And I know that this is a new process for you all as well, so we appreciate you working with us. But those two items, the items that Brendy presented in her presentation, the complete list, including the two items that you talked about from environmental efficiency standpoint, are absolutely items that will be included in the zoning case. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Do we want to accept what they provided or provide additional? I really like the idea of encourage, this is kind of a vague suggestion, but, some sort of encouragement of connectivity and walkability in terms of pedestrian access and that kind of stuff to the greenways. I think that's been kind of a board priority since we started. So, does anybody have any comments or want to make a movement on anything or have any more questions?
Hal, with that recommendation, what you all would be voting on is the full list that was provided, as well as you said, providing pedestrian-friendly connections to the future Beaver Creek Greenway expansion and surrounding neighborhoods, if that sounds right.
Yeah, can somebody put up their list on the screen? Is that possible?
Brendy, can you share your PowerPoint with that page again?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's quite a lot, so.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So I would certainly be in favor of that. If I'd make a movement that we accept that along with, encouragement, like however you phrase that, Megan, I thought sounded well. It sounded like a good idea in terms of the connectivity.
I second the motion.
All right. So Katie.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Suzanne.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Ted.
Aye.
And I also approve. So we have unanimous voting on that one too. So that passes, and we'll make that recommendation to town council that they accept what you had there. So thank you for your time, and we appreciate it. Good luck on your project going forward.
Thank you all for your time, and glad we got to be one of your first cases here, and good luck going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you again, I'm sure.
Okay, I know this has been a long meeting for the board, but we certainly can spend a little time with this open discussion section. We anticipate having some more members join in the future, whether that's next meeting or the meeting after. I don't know. I know the answer, but there should be some new members coming to replace some of the ones that left. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Or this is kind of the open time that anybody that wants to talk about anything can bring it up.
And last time we sort of forwarded on the conservation subdivision information, I guess, to the planning board. Where is that, or whatever happened with that?
I don't know the answer to that.
Does Megan or Shelley know the answer?
So we met as staff members this week to discuss it and to try to figure out how to move forward on that, and to kind of bring, as planning members, to try to bring Megan up to speed kind of on the pros and cons of it and everything. I don't know that we had yet made a determination of when or how it's going to go to planning committee, I think is was it planning board or planning committee? I think so let me take a step back.
Board.
First off, we realized that there's actually not a mechanism to take this kind of thing to planning board. That it would actually have to go to the planning committee of the town council. That because that kind of policy level decision is something that they are actually more equipped to evaluate. Planning board generally only reviews rezoning projects, proposals to amend the UDO, so specific language to propose to amend the UDO, and updates to our plans, to like the transportation plans, the land use map, that kind of thing. So that's not really within their purview to review and evaluate conservation subdivisions to see if that's something that the town would want to move forward with or want to adapt in some way. So after, I think we might have had to involve getting some legal opinion as well. And so the determination that the appropriate place would be to take it to the planning committee of town council. And that we needed to get together a staff to discuss it and discuss when it might be put on the agenda and kind of familiarize ourselves with conservation subdivisions. We don't have a time frame yet for when that may be going to the planning committee. Their meetings are generally about the same time every month, but they can have multiples of them, or they can kind of call them at I don't want to say ad hoc, but on a more frequent basis. And we don't know when the next meeting will be at this point. My understanding is that Diane and Amanda are investigating that and will be getting back to us on that.
Okay, thank you.
So we are making motions, we're just not quite there yet.
Yes, thank you, Shelley. And I just made a note to keep you updated for the March meeting.
Sounds good. Any other comments or questions, or anybody want to discuss anything before we adjourn?
I'd like to say I appreciated all the info we got beforehand on the rezoning. That was good work.
I second that.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely, we will continue to do so.
Okay.
So can I ask a question? So the questions that I sent that I saw that staff then responded to, was that the appropriate kind of thing, or I guess am I doing it wrong?
No, that's perfectly appropriate.
Yeah, that was very helpful.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure because last time was my first meeting and I kind of went into this with like no guidance, so I just kind of took a shot in the dark. Okay, thank you.
No, I thought that was very helpful, and the staff just getting a chance to respond, just to give as much information as possible ahead of time, just so everybody's on the same page. That was the idea.
Okay, thank you.
And Suzanne, that was the first time that we all started that process too. So you're not alone, but yes, good job.
I had a quick question for staff too, and it could be partial comment in there as well, I guess, but when we're considering a property that has a multiple range of uses and we make a recommendation, a set of recommendations for them to adopt moving forward, thinking through if that use changes, like from a storage, for just an example that's relevant right now, if it changes from a storage building complex to, a gas station, I think that could pretty wildly change whatever recommendations the EAB makes, depending on a proposed use. So I'm more of the process piece. If the use changes at one point or another, it never comes back in front of the EAB, right? It's out of our hands at that point.
That's right. So one thing that you can do, and this is something that planning staff and the other TRC members do a lot, is kind of look to see if there's a particular set of uses on there that are especially concerning to you and suggest conditions specifically for those. So I'm going to pick on gas stations because they've been known to be the big bad. Yeah, they're good to pick on. If you're concerned with the potential for filthy water running off in the parking lot because, people pull in to do small amounts of maintenance in them all the time, or if they've got a leaky oil pan or something like that. Yep, all that fun stuff. Then you can suggest that maybe they have to, maybe if they develop that particular use, that they have to do something extra to, I don't know exactly what that extra thing would be with a gas station. That's where asking that question ahead of time is really useful because it gives staff a chance to look into possible options or say, well, we don't have the ability to require this under the UDO, but here are some things that people have done that maybe could be added as a zoning condition. So Jessica would probably have better ideas about how you treat the water from seriously gross gas station runoff. But we could require something like that, or you could suggest that they look into it at the very least. Since
yeah, there's certain
the board can't
requirements.
Require.
Yeah, they have things like oil water separators, that would be required at gas stations in addition to our normal stormwater control measures.
I think that's a really important point, guys, for the board, because the difference, we wouldn't want to put in place recommendations that could hinder one thing and not the other. If it's proposed as a gas station, it gets a more stringent set, for example, than storage unit. So I just got a wrinkle in my brain. I appreciate that, guys. That's great.
No problem. Other things to think of too are, and this is something that pops into my head all the time, is that noise. If there's a use that you're concerned will be particularly noisy near, say, a residential or rural area, then you can look at that use and say, well, we'd recommend, you can even go as far as to say we would recommend, because of potential noise issues, that this use not be included on the list. Because that doesn't necessarily mean they will take it off, but you can make that recommendation. And staff does it all the time. We say, look, we don't think that you need to have an auto parts store here or need to have a small engine repair shop right next to a new townhome development or something along those lines. So it can be noise, it can be environmental impacts as far as water quality. If there are particular areas of concern, you can ask for them to be removed. If they aren't removed, you can say, well, could we limit the hours to a certain time frame? I will say that limiting the hours of business is hard to enforce, but it's something that can be requested. And those are kind of the types of things that we look at too, but it's always good to have another pair of eyes on it. And there are some uses that are going to be brighter. So the B1 zoning, or the B2 zoning district doesn't include car dealerships, I don't think, but car dealerships are a big problem when it comes to their lights. So we have gotten some of them to add a cutoff time so that their lights turn off at a certain time, like 9 o'clock at night or something, or that they only turn on at night if it's motion activated, so it acts as a security light system as opposed to being on all night every night. So you can definitely look at those as well.
Sounds good.
And if you ever if an applicant gives you a list and says that we're just going to request all of the uses in this district, but doesn't actually give you a list of uses, you're welcome to reach out to staff and we will tell you exactly what those uses are and give you the portions of the UDO that have those definitions. Okay. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, perfect. Anybody have any other questions or comments before we adjourn? I mean, before we adjourn.
Second.
Katie?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Great. Thanks, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
We're adjourned at 8:41. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Thank you,
night.
guys. Thanks, IT. Bye.
you.